The hotel clerk slides a receipt across the counter showing $250 in pet fees. Lieutenant Commander Ryan Mitchell stares at the paper, his service dog Shadow sitting perfectly still beside him. "That's our standard animal charge," Brittany says without looking up. Ryan has his VA documentation in hand. Federal law on his side. 8 years of combat service behind him. None of it matters to her. What happens in the next 7 minutes will bring corporate executives out of their beds, trigger company-wide policy changes across 340 hotels, and end one clerk's career forever. Before we begin, subscribe to our channel and follow this story to the end. Comment your city below, so I can see how far this story travels. Ryan Mitchell pulled into the Grandview Resort parking lot at exactly 11:43 p.m. on a Wednesday night in late October. He killed the engine and sat there for a moment, both hands still gripping the steering wheel. 14 hours of driving. Virginia to Arizona. 1,200 miles of highway rest stops and gas stations. Shadow shifted in the back seat, his collar tags jingling softly in the silence. "Almost there, buddy," Ryan said quietly. "Just gotta check in, then we can both crash." The German shepherd's ears perked forward at the sound of his voice. 2 years together, and Shadow still responded to every word like it was the most important thing he'd ever heard. Ryan opened the door and stepped out into the cool desert night. His legs felt stiff from sitting so long. His lower back ached in that familiar way it always did, now a souvenir from a hard landing in Syria 3 years ago. He stretched, feeling his spine pop in 3 places. Shadow hopped out behind him, immediately moving to Ryan's left side. The dog's service vest was slightly rumpled from the long drive, but the patches were still clearly visible. PTSD support animal. Do not pet. Working dog. Ryan grabbed his duffel bag from the trunk and headed toward the lobby entrance. The automatic doors slid open, releasing a wave of air conditioning that smelled like carpet cleaner and stale coffee. Fluorescent lights hummed overhead, too bright after hours of dark highway. Ryan's eyes automatically scanned the space. 2 exits, 1 elevator, 3 security cameras. A businessman waiting near the vending machines. An elderly couple checking their phones on a lobby couch. Old habits. The kind that kept you alive in Fallujah, but made you look paranoid everywhere else. The front desk was straight ahead. A young woman stood behind the counter, maybe 24 or 25, with blonde hair pulled back in a tight ponytail. Her name tag read Brittany. She was typing something on her computer and didn't look up when Ryan approached. "Checking in," he said. "Reservation under Mitchell." "One moment." Her fingers clicked across the keyboard. Shadow sat down beside Ryan, his posture perfect, his dark eyes watching the lobby with calm alertness. Ryan pulled out his wallet and set his credit card on the counter. Next to it, he placed the folder he always carried. Service dog documentation, VA medical records, training certification. Everything anyone could possibly need to verify that Shadow was legitimate. He'd learned to have it ready. Most hotels were fine, some asked questions. A few gave him trouble. Tonight felt like trouble. Brittany finally looked up from her screen. Her eyes went straight to Shadow. "Is that your dog?" "Yes, ma'am. He's a service animal." She stared at Shadow for a long moment. Something shifted in her expression. Not quite hostility, but close to it. "We have a pet policy," she said. "He's not a pet. He's a service dog." "I understand that's what people say." Ryan felt the first flicker of tension in his chest. He'd had this conversation before, many times. It usually ended fine once he showed his documentation. He slid the folder across the counter. "Everything's in there. VA medical documentation, training, certification, service, dog registration." Brittany didn't open the folder. "Sir, I need to let you know about our animal fees. It's $200 for cleaning plus $50 per night. Your reservation is for 3 nights, so that's $350 total." Ryan blinked. "I'm sorry, what?" $350 for the animal. "Ma'am, I just explained. He's a service dog. Federal law prohibits charging fees for legitimate service animals. Brittany's jaw tightened, almost imperceptibly. Our corporate office has been cracking down on this. Too many people claim their pets are service animals just to avoid the fees. We've seen all kinds of fake documentation. This isn't fake. That's what everyone says. Shadow shifted slightly, moving closer to Ryan's leg. The dog had sensed something. The change in Ryan's breathing, maybe, or the subtle tension in his shoulders. Ryan kept his voice steady. Look, I understand you have policies to follow, but I'm telling you this is a legitimate service animal. I'm a Navy veteran. I have PTSD. Shadow is trained to... PTSD. Brittany interrupted. She looked him up and down, her eyes lingering on his NWU uniform. You look fine to me. The words hit Ryan like a punch to the gut. He'd heard them before, from family members who didn't understand, from strangers who thought PTSD meant you walked around screaming and crying all the time, from people who had no idea what it was like to watch your friends die and then have to pretend everything was normal. Excuse me. I'm just saying you don't look disabled. Real service dogs are for blind people or people in wheelchairs, not for... She waved her hand vaguely. Whatever you're claiming. Ryan's hands tightened into fists at his sides. Shadow pressed harder against his leg, a warm weight that was supposed to ground him, supposed to keep him calm. It wasn't working. What I'm claiming, Ryan said slowly, is that I spent 8 years in special operations. 5 deployments. I watched my teammates die. I have nightmares that make me wake up swinging. Panic attacks that feel like heart attacks. This dog is the reason I can function in public, and you're telling me I don't look disabled enough. Brittany's expression didn't change. If anything, she seemed annoyed. Sir, I'm just doing my job. Corporate has strict policies about animals. If you don't want to pay the fee, you're welcome to find another hotel. It's midnight. Your hotel is the only one with availability within 50 miles. I have my brother's wedding this weekend. That's not really my problem. Ryan stared at her. He couldn't quite believe what he was hearing. In 13 years of military service, he'd faced insurgents' IEDs, ambushes, firefights. He'd been shot at, blown up, nearly killed more times than he could count. None of it had prepared him for standing in a hotel lobby being told his invisible wounds didn't count. Can I speak to a manager? Brittany sighed heavily. The night manager left an hour ago. General manager won't be in until morning. You can file a complaint online if you want. And in the meantime, you either pay the pet fee or you leave. She started typing on her computer. I'm adding the charges to your bill now. I didn't agree to that. You don't have to agree. It's hotel policy. Ryan watched her type. $250. Money that was supposed to go toward his brother's wedding gift. Money he couldn't afford to lose. But it wasn't about the money anymore. It was about principle. It was about the law. It was about every veteran who would walk through these doors after him and face the same ignorant assumptions. He pulled out his phone. What are you doing? Brittany asked sharply. Recording this conversation. You can't do that. This is private property. I'm documenting potential civil rights violations. You're breaking federal law by charging fees for a legitimate service animal. Brittany's face flushed red. Put that phone away or I'm calling security. Go ahead. She glared at him for a long moment, then reached for the desk phone. Shadow whined softly. The sound cut through Ryan's anger, reminding him why he was here. Not to fight, not to cause trouble, just to check into a hotel so he could sleep and make it to his brother's wedding. But Brittany wasn't finished. You know what? She said, her voice rising loud enough for the other guests in the lobby to hear. I'm sick of people like you, coming in here with your fake service dogs and your fake disabilities expecting special treatment. That dog doesn't even look like a real service animal. What's that supposed to mean? He's too healthy, too well-groomed. Real service dogs look, I don't know, official. Yours looks like a pet. Ryan couldn't help it. He laughed. It wasn't a happy sound. You think service dogs are supposed to look ragged? Unhealthy Ma'am Shadow cost $25,000 to train. He can detect a panic attack before I even know it's coming. He's woken me up from nightmares that would have had me hurting myself or someone else. He saved my life more times than I can count. Anyone can say that. Anyone can say anything. That's why I have documentation. Brittany glanced at the folder still sitting on the counter. Documentation that anyone can print off the internet. These are official VA records. Sure they are. The businessman near the vending machines had stopped pretending to mind his own business. He was watching the confrontation openly, now his phone in his hand. The elderly couple on the couch was whispering to each other. Ryan felt the weight of their attention, the exposure, the vulnerability. In combat, he knew who the enemy was. He knew how to respond. There were rules of engagement, clear protocols, defined objectives. Here in this hotel lobby, he had nothing. Just a clerk who didn't believe him, and a dog who was doing everything right while being called a fraud. Shadow pressed closer against his leg. The dog's breathing had changed, become slower and more deliberate. A calming technique he'd been trained to use when Ryan's stress levels spiked. It was working barely. I want to be clear about something, Ryan said, fighting to keep his voice level. What you're doing right now is illegal. Charging fees for a legitimate service animal violates the Americans with Disabilities Act. You can face federal fines. The hotel can be sued. This is not a gray area. Brittany crossed her arms. Are you threatening me? I'm informing you of the law. Well, I know the law too, and I know my rights. I have the right to protect this hotel from people who abuse the system. I'm not abusing anything. That's your opinion. Ryan closed his eyes for a moment. He could feel his heart pounding, the familiar tightness in his chest, the sensation of walls closing in. Not now, he told himself, not here. But his body didn't listen to commands anymore. Not like it used to. The panic came when it wanted triggered by things that shouldn't matter. A crowded room. A loud noise. A stranger's hostility. Shadow shifted position, moving to stand directly in front of Ryan. The dog looked up at him with those dark, steady eyes. Breathe. Ground yourself. I'm here. Ryan put his hand on Shadow's head. The fur was soft under his fingers. Warm. Real. He focused on that sensation. The texture. The warmth. The steady rise and fall of Shadow's breathing. Slowly the panic receded. When Ryan opened his eyes, Brittany was watching him with something like contempt. See? She said. This is exactly what I'm talking about. All this drama over a pet fee. I just had a panic attack. You looked fine to me. That's because my dog caught it early. That's literally what he's trained to do. Brittany rolled her eyes. Sure. The businessman had moved closer. He was a heavy-set man in his 50s, wearing a rumpled suit and carrying a laptop bag. His expression was troubled. Excuse me, he said. I couldn't help overhearing. Brittany turned to him with a professional smile that didn't reach her eyes. Can I help you, sir? I think you should look at this gentleman's documentation. Sir, this is between me and the guest. No, I think it concerns all of us. What you're doing is discrimination. Brittany's smile vanished. I'm following hotel policy. Your hotel policy doesn't override federal law. I appreciate your concern, but I know how to do my job. The businessman looked at Ryan. You okay, soldier? Ryan nodded slowly. Yeah, thanks. I'm Harold Okonkwo. I'm in the hospitality industry myself. What she's doing. He shook his head. This isn't right. Brittany's face had gone red again. Sir, I'm going to have to ask you to step back. This doesn't involve you. I'm making it involve me. Shadow's ears perked up. The dog had noticed something in Harold's tone, or maybe in Ryan's reaction to having an unexpected ally. Ryan felt something he hadn't expected. Gratitude and shame. He'd spent so many years being self-reliant, handling everything on his own. Having a stranger step in to help him felt strange, but also good. "Look," Ryan said, trying one more time. "I don't want trouble. I just want to check into my room. I've been driving for 14 hours. I'm exhausted. My brother's getting married this weekend and I can't miss it. Can we please just resolve this?" Brittany's expression hardened. "I've already told you. Pay the fee or leave. And I've told you the fee is illegal. Then sue us." The words hung in the air. Harold Okonkwo shook his head slowly. "Ma'am, you might want to reconsider that response." "Excuse me. I'm saying you might want to think very carefully about what you're doing right now. Because I promise you, this is not going to end the way you think it will." Brittany laughed. It was an ugly sound. "Are you threatening me too?" "No, ma'am. I'm just telling you the truth." He pulled out his phone and stepped away, already dialing a number. Brittany watched him go with a sneer. "Whatever. Call whoever you want. I'm not scared of some random hotel guest." Ryan said nothing. He was watching Harold, watching the way the older man's expression changed as someone answered his call. "Hey, it's Harold." "Yeah, I know what time it is. Listen, I need you to do something for me. I'm at the Grandview Resort in Arizona, Phoenix area. There's a situation here you need to know about." His voice dropped too low for Ryan to hear the rest. Brittany was back to typing on her computer, ignoring both of them. Shadow remained pressed against Ryan's leg, a steady presence in the chaos. The elderly couple on the couch had started recording on their phone. They weren't even trying to hide it. Ryan looked down at his dog. At the service vest that clearly identified Shadow as a legitimate working animal. At the documentation folder, still sitting unopened on the counter. He'd done everything right. Followed every rule. Prepared for every contingency. And none of it mattered to someone who had already decided he was a fraud. "You know," Ryan said quietly. "I used to think the hardest part of coming home was the nightmares, the panic attacks, the way every loud noise made me want to dive for cover. But it's not. The hardest part is this. Having to prove over and over again that my wounds are real just because you can't see them." Brittany didn't respond. She was printing something on the receipt paper. "4 tours in combat zones," Ryan continued. "I've been shot at more times than I can count. Watched friends die in my arms. Carried pieces of them home in body bags. And you're telling me I don't look disabled enough? Sir, I've heard every story in the book. This isn't a story, it's my life." Brittany slid a new receipt across the counter. "Your room is ready. Total comes to $612 with the pet fee. Will that be on the card you provided?" Ryan stared at the paper. $612. Almost double what he'd expected to pay. "I'm not paying that." "Then you're not staying here. I have a reservation." "Reservations can be canceled." "You can't cancel my reservation because I won't pay an illegal fee." Brittany smiled coldly. "Watch me." She started typing again. Ryan's hands were shaking. Not from anger this time, from the effort of staying calm, of not saying something he'd regret, of not giving her any excuse to call security and have him removed. Shadow whined softly. The dog could feel everything Ryan was feeling. Every spike of stress, every surge of adrenaline, every desperate attempt to maintain control. "Ma'am?" Ryan said, his voice barely above a whisper. "I am asking you, please. Look at my documentation. Call your manager. Do whatever you need to do. But please don't make me spend another night driving around looking for somewhere to sleep." For just a moment, something flickered in Brittany's eyes. Something that might have been doubt. Then it was gone. "I already told you. The night manager went home. There's nothing I can do. There's nothing you're willing to do. Call it whatever you want." Harold Okonkwo was walking back toward the desk. His phone was still in his hand, but he wasn't talking anymore. His expression had changed. He looked almost satisfied. "Hey," he said to Ryan. "You might want to stick around for the next few minutes." Brittany glanced at him dismissively. "Sir, I thought I asked you to step back." You did. I ignored you. I can have you removed from the property. You can try. There was something in his voice that made Brittany pause. A confidence that hadn't been there before. Ryan looked at Harold. What's going on? Made a phone call. Friend of mine works in corporate compliance for a major hotel chain. He knows people at Grandview Corporate. Made some calls of his own. Brittany's face went pale. What? Your corporate headquarters is aware of this situation now. Legal department, too. Should be hearing from them any minute. You're bluffing. Harold shrugged. Guess we'll find out. The lobby went quiet. Even the elderly couple had stopped whispering. Ryan could hear the hum of the fluorescent lights, the soft whir of the air conditioning, Shadow's steady breathing beside him. Seconds ticked by, then a minute. Brittany had stopped typing. She was staring at the phone on her desk like it might bite her. This is ridiculous, she said. Corporate doesn't call in the middle of the night over some guest complaint. They do when it involves federal law violations. I haven't violated anything. Ma'am, with respect, you violated several sections of the Americans with Disabilities Act in the last 20 minutes alone. All of it recorded. All of it witnessed. Brittany's confident expression was cracking. For the first time, she looked uncertain. I was just following policy, she said. Policy doesn't override federal law. I'm not a lawyer. How am I supposed to know? The phone rang. The sound was sharp, sudden, cutting through the tension like a knife. Everyone in the lobby turned to look at the front desk. Brittany stared at the phone. It rang again, and again. You might want to answer that, Harold said. Brittany reached for the receiver. Her hand was trembling. Grandview Resort front desk. This is Brittany speaking. Ryan watched her face as she listened to whoever was on the other end. First confusion, then disbelief, then fear. Yes, sir, she said. I understand, but I was just... She stopped, listened. Yes, sir. More listening. I understand. Her face had gone white, completely, absolutely white. Yes, sir, right away. Yes. She hung up the phone very slowly. For a long moment, she didn't move, didn't speak. Just stood there, staring at nothing. Shadow pressed closer to Ryan's leg. Ma'am, Ryan said. Everything okay? Brittany looked at him. Her earlier hostility was gone. In its place was something that looked a lot like terror. I'm sorry, sir, she said. Her voice was shaking. I need you to know that all pet fees have been removed from your account. You've been upgraded to our presidential suite at no additional charge. The general manager will be here within the hour to personally apologize. And she swallowed hard. I need to ask you to please accept my apology for any misunderstanding. Ryan didn't respond. He wasn't sure what to say. Harold Okonkwo smiled grimly. That's more like it. Brittany's hands were shaking as she typed something into the computer. Your new room keys are being programmed now. Is there anything else I can do to make your stay more comfortable? Complimentary breakfast. Late checkout. Anything at all. What just happened? Ryan asked. That was corporate headquarters, the legal compliance department. Brittany's voice was barely audible. They said what I was doing was a federal crime, that the hotel could be fined, sued, that I could be personally liable. I tried to tell you that. I know, I'm sorry, I didn't... She stopped, started again. I didn't understand. I thought... You thought I was lying. Brittany nodded miserably. Everyone says they have a service dog these days. I've seen so many fake certificates, so many people trying to sneak their pets in. I just assumed. You assumed wrong. I know. I'm sorry. Shadow's tail wagged slightly. The dog could sense the change in the room, the reduction in tension, the crisis passing. Ryan looked at his dog, his partner, his lifeline. "This is Shadow," he said. "He's been with me for 2 years. He knows when I'm going to have a panic attack before I do. He wakes me up from nightmares. He helps me function in a world that doesn't always understand what I've been through." Brittany nodded. Tears were forming in her eyes. "I'm sorry," she said again. "I didn't know." "That's the point. You didn't know. And instead of finding out, you assumed the worst." "I know. I'm so sorry." Ryan took a deep breath. Then another. "Okay," he said finally. "Okay. I accept your apology." Brittany looked surprised. "You do?" "Yeah, I do. Everyone makes mistakes. What matters is what you do after." "Thank you. I promise I'm going to learn from this. I'm going to do better." "I hope so, for the next veteran who walks through those doors." Harold Okonkwo stepped forward. "If I may suggest, ma'am, you might want to look into some ADA training. There are programs available. Might help you understand what you're dealing with." Brittany nodded eagerly. "I will. I'll talk to my manager about it. I promise." The phone rang again. Brittany answered it immediately. "Yes, sir. Yes, he's still here. Yes, I've apologized. Yes, I've upgraded his room. Yes, I understand." She looked at Ryan. "The general manager is on his way. He wants to apologize in person." "That's not necessary." "He insists." Ryan sighed. He was exhausted. More tired than he'd been in years. All he wanted was to get to his room and sleep. But something told him this night wasn't over yet. "Fine," he said. "I'll wait." He found a chair in the lobby and sat down heavily. Shadow immediately settled at his feet, head resting on Ryan's boots. Harold Okonkwo took the chair next to him. "Hell of a night." "You could say that. That was a good thing you did, standing up for yourself." Ryan shook his head. "I didn't do anything. You made the phone call. You held your ground. That's what mattered. A lot of people would have just paid the fee and walked away." "I thought about it." "But you didn't." "No, I didn't." Harold was quiet for a moment. "My brother was Army. 2 tours in Vietnam. Came back different. Took him years to get help. Back then, they didn't even have a name for what he was going through. I'm sorry. He's okay now, mostly. But I remember what it was like. The anger, the nightmares, the way people treated him like he was broken." Ryan nodded slowly. "It's hard. Feeling like you have to prove yourself all the time, like your wounds don't count because people can't see them." "They count. They all count." Shadow lifted his head and looked at Harold. The dog's dark eyes were calm, assessing. Harold reached out slowly, then stopped. "Can I—" "He's working right now. Better not to distract him." "Of course. Sorry." "No worries. Most people don't know." They sat in silence for a while. The elderly couple had left. The lobby was quiet, except for the hum of machines and the occasional click of Brittany's keyboard. Ryan closed his eyes. His body was screaming for sleep, but his mind was still racing, replaying the confrontation, analyzing every word, every gesture, every moment of conflict. Old habits, the kind that kept you alive in a war zone but made it impossible to relax anywhere else. Shadow shifted, pressing his warm body more firmly against Ryan's legs. The dog's weight was grounding. Real. Present. Breathe. I'm here. You're safe. Ryan focused on that feeling. The warmth. The pressure. The steady rhythm of Shadow's breathing. Slowly, his racing thoughts began to quiet. The front doors opened, and a man in his 50s rushed in, still wearing sweatpants and a hastily thrown-on polo shirt. His hair was disheveled, like he'd just rolled out of bed, which Ryan realized he probably had. "Mr. Mitchell." The man hurried over, hand extended. "I'm David Chen, General Manager. I am so incredibly sorry for what happened here tonight." Ryan stood and shook his hand. "Mr. Chen, please call me David, and please accept my deepest apologies." What Brittany did was completely unacceptable. It violated not only hotel policy, but federal law. I want you to know that she will be receiving immediate retraining, and this incident will be thoroughly investigated. I appreciate that. I also want you to know that your entire stay is on us. 3 nights presidential suite, all meals, anything you need. It's the least we can do. Ryan shook his head. That's not necessary. I just wanted... Please, I insist. What you experienced tonight never should have happened, and I want to make it right. David Chen's expression was earnest, genuinely apologetic. Ryan could see the man was mortified by what had occurred. Okay, Ryan said finally. Thank you. Thank you for your patience, and thank you for your service. David glanced at Ryan's uniform, at the patches on Shadow's vest. My father was a Marine, Korea. He never talked about what he saw over there, but I know it stayed with him. I have nothing but respect for what you've done for this country. Ryan nodded, not trusting himself to speak. David handed him a business card. This is my direct line. If you ever stay at any Grandview property anywhere in the country, you call me first. I'll make sure you're taken care of. I appreciate that. And Mr. Mitchell, I'm going to make sure this never happens again. Not at this hotel, not at any of our hotels. What happened to you tonight is going to change how we train our staff, how we handle service animal accommodations, everything. Ryan looked at him. You mean that? I give you my word. They shook hands again. David turned to Harold Okonkwo. And thank you, sir, for making that call. I understand you're the one who alerted corporate. Harold shrugged. Just did what was right. Well, your room is comped too. Least we can do. Harold looked surprised. That's not necessary? I insist. Ryan felt Shadow press against his leg one more time. The dog's tail was wagging slowly. He could sense the change in energy, the resolution of conflict. It was almost 1 a.m. Ryan had a wedding to attend in 2 days. His brother didn't know how close he'd come to missing it. I should get some sleep, Ryan said. Of course. David handed him a new set of keycards. Presidential suite top floor, best view in the hotel. Anything you need, anything at all, you call the front desk and ask for me directly. Thank you. Ryan gathered his duffel bag and headed for the elevator. Shadow walked beside him, matching his pace perfectly the way he always did. At the elevator, Ryan paused and looked back at the lobby. Brittany was still at the front desk, but she was no longer typing. She was just sitting there staring at nothing, looking shell-shocked. David Chen was talking to her quietly, his expression serious, but not unkind. Harold Okonkwo was heading out the front door, giving Ryan a small wave as he left. The lobby that had felt so hostile 30 minutes ago now felt almost peaceful. Ryan pressed the elevator button. Hell of a night, Shadow, he murmured. The dog looked up at him with those calm, steady eyes. Yeah, but we got through it, like we always do. The elevator doors opened. Ryan stepped inside. Tomorrow, he would call his brother and tell him he'd arrived safely. He would not mention the confrontation, the panic attack, the federal law violations. Some things were better left unsaid. But as the elevator carried him upward, Ryan made himself a promise. The next veteran who walked into this hotel with a service dog would not face what he had faced tonight. He had made sure of that. The elevator doors opened on the top floor. Ryan stepped out into a quiet hallway. Shadow walked beside him, a steady presence in the darkness. And somewhere in Virginia, his brother was sleeping peacefully, unaware of how close everything had come to falling apart. The presidential suite was bigger than Ryan's entire apartment back in Virginia. Shadow did his usual sweep the moment they walked in, sniffing corners, checking behind furniture, investigating the bathroom. Old habits for both of them. The dog wouldn't settle until he was satisfied the space was secure. Ryan dropped his duffel bag on the floor and sat on the edge of the bed. His hands were still shaking. Not from the confrontation anymore, from the aftermath. The adrenaline crash that always came after his system went into overdrive. He looked at his phone. 3 missed calls from his brother Jake. 2 texts. You close yet? Let me know when you get in, Mom's asking. Ryan typed a quick response. Just checked in, long drive, talk tomorrow. 3 dots appeared immediately. Jake was still awake. Everything okay? Ryan hesitated. His thumb hovered over the keyboard. Yeah, fine, just tired. Okay. Get some sleep. Big weekend ahead. Will do. Ryan set the phone on the nightstand and stared at the ceiling. Big weekend ahead. His little brother was getting married. Jake, who used to follow him around like a puppy when they were kids. Jake, who cried for a week when Ryan left for basic training. Jake, who had somehow grown into a man while Ryan was overseas fighting wars that most Americans had forgotten about. Shadow jumped onto the bed and lay down beside him, which was technically against the rules, but Ryan didn't care. Not tonight. He put his hand on the dog's side and felt the steady rhythm of breathing. Hell of a night, buddy. Shadow's tail thumped once against the mattress. Ryan closed his eyes. He didn't expect to sleep. He never expected to sleep. But exhaustion pulled him under before he could fight it. The dream started the way it always did. Fallujah, August. Heat so intense it felt like breathing fire. Ryan was on point, moving through a narrow alley with his team behind him. 4 men. His brothers. His responsibility. The walls on either side were pockmarked with bullet holes from previous firefights. Trash lined the gutters. Somewhere in the distance, a dog was barking. Ghost, hold up. That was Martinez. Always cautious. Always watching Ryan's back. Ryan raised his fist and the team froze. Something wasn't right. The alley was too quiet. The dog had stopped barking. I don't like this, Peterson whispered. Neither do I. Ryan scanned the rooftops, the windows, the shadows. Nothing moved. Let's pull back. Find another route. Command wants us at the objective in 15 minutes. Command isn't here. Ryan started to turn around. That's when the world exploded. The IED had been buried under a pile of garbage 10 feet ahead. Ryan never saw it, never sensed it, never had a chance to warn anyone. The blast lifted him off his feet and threw him against a wall. His ears were ringing. His vision was blurred. He could taste blood. And then he heard the screaming. Martinez was down. Peterson was down. Williams was trying to drag himself toward cover with both legs shattered. Ryan crawled toward them. His own body was broken in ways he couldn't feel yet, the adrenaline masking the damage. Hold on, he kept saying. Hold on, I've got you. But he didn't have them. He couldn't save them. He could only watch as the light faded from Martinez's eyes, as Peterson stopped breathing, as Williams whispered the name of his daughter with his last breath. 3 men. Gone in 90 seconds. Because Ryan missed something. Because he failed. Ryan woke up gasping, his heart pounding so hard he could feel it in his throat. Shadow was already there, pressing against his chest, licking his face, making small whining sounds that said, I'm here, you're safe. Come back to me. Ryan grabbed the dog and held on. I'm okay, he whispered. I'm okay. I'm okay. He wasn't okay. He was never okay. But saying the words helped sometimes, made them feel almost true. The clock on the nightstand said 4:47 a.m. He'd slept for less than 4 hours. It was enough. It would have to be enough. Ryan got up and went to the bathroom, splashed cold water on his face, looked at himself in the mirror. 35 years old. He looked 50. The face staring back at him had deep lines around the eyes, a permanent tension in the jaw, a gaze that seemed to look through things rather than at them. The face of a man who had seen too much and couldn't unsee any of it. Get it together, Mitchell, he told his reflection. You've got a wedding to survive. Shadow appeared in the bathroom doorway, watching him with those calm, knowing eyes. Yeah, I know. One day at a time. The dog's tail wagged. Ryan showered, shaved, and put on civilian clothes for the first time in days. Jeans and a button-down shirt. He felt naked without his uniform, exposed. But this weekend wasn't about him. It was about Jake. He checked his phone. A text from his mother. "Breakfast at the venue at 9. Don't be late. I mean it, Ryan." He smiled despite himself. Some things never changed. Margaret Mitchell had been telling him not to be late since he was 5 years old, and she still didn't trust him to show up on time. "Come on, Shadow, let's go find some food." The hotel restaurant was nearly empty at 6 a.m. A few business travelers hunched over laptops. An elderly couple sharing a newspaper. A young family with a toddler who kept throwing Cheerios on the floor. Ryan chose a table in the corner where he could see all the exits. Shadow settled under the table, invisible to anyone who wasn't looking. A waitress approached. Young, maybe college-aged, with a bright smile that seemed genuine. "Good morning. Just you today." "Just me and my dog." She glanced under the table, and her smile widened. "Oh, he's beautiful. Is he a service dog?" Ryan tensed automatically, waiting for the questions, the skepticism, the demand for documentation. "Yes, he is." "That's wonderful. My cousin has a service dog for her diabetes. Saved her life twice already." The waitress pulled out her notepad. "What can I get you?" Ryan felt something loosen in his chest. Not everyone was like Brittany. Not everyone assumed the worst. "Coffee, black, and whatever you recommend for breakfast." "The Western omelet is amazing. Best in the city if you ask me." "Sold." She disappeared toward the kitchen, and Ryan let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. Shadow's tail thumped against his foot. "I know, buddy. I need to relax." The coffee arrived first, hot and strong. Ryan wrapped his hands around the mug and let the warmth seep into his fingers. His phone buzzed. A text from a number he didn't recognize. "Mr. Mitchell, this is David Chen from the Grandview. I wanted to follow up on last night and make sure your accommodations are satisfactory. Please let me know if there's anything else I can do." Ryan typed back a quick thank you and set the phone aside. Then another text came through. This one from Harold Okonkwo, the businessman who had intervened. "Hey Ryan, it's Harold, the guy from last night. I got your number from the hotel. Hope that's okay. Just wanted to check in and make sure you're doing all right." Ryan stared at the message. A stranger checking on him, making sure he was okay. When was the last time anyone outside his immediate family had done that? "Doing fine," he typed back. "Thanks again for your help." "No thanks necessary. I meant what I said. My brother was Army. I know what you guys go through. If you ever need anything, don't hesitate to reach out." Ryan didn't know what to say to that. He settled for a simple thumbs-up emoji and put the phone away. The omelet arrived and the waitress was right. It was amazing. Ryan ate mechanically, not really tasting the food, but forcing himself to finish. He'd learned in the SEALs that you ate when you could, whether you were hungry or not. You never knew when your next meal might come. Old habits. By 8 a.m., he was back in his room, changing into something more appropriate for a wedding venue breakfast. Shadow watched him from the bed, head tilted slightly. "Don't give me that look. I know I'm overthinking this." The dog's tail wagged. "Fine, let's go see the family." The wedding venue was 20 minutes from the hotel, a sprawling ranch property that Jake and his fiancée had fallen in love with at first sight. Ryan pulled into the parking lot and sat in his truck for a moment, gathering himself. He hadn't seen his family in 8 months. Not since Christmas, and that visit had been cut short when a panic attack sent him fleeing to his hotel room before dessert was served. His mother had cried. His sister had yelled at him. Jake had tried to understand, but couldn't hide his disappointment. Ryan had driven back to Virginia the next morning and hadn't visited since. Shadow whined softly. "Yeah, I know. Can't hide in the truck forever." He got out, clipped Shadow's leash to his collar, and walked toward the main building. His mother spotted him first. Margaret Mitchell was 62 years old and looked exactly the same as she had when Ryan left for basic training at 18. Same silver-streaked hair, same sharp blue eyes, same expression that could shift from loving to disapproving in a heartbeat. Ryan! She rushed toward him, arms outstretched, and pulled him into a hug that squeezed the air from his lungs. Mom, can't breathe. Good. Maybe it'll knock some sense into you. She pulled back and held his face in her hands, examining him like she was looking for damage. You look tired. Long drive. You should have flown. You know I don't fly anymore? Her expression softened. She did know. She knew everything, even the things he'd never told her. Well, you're here now. That's what matters. She looked down at Shadow. And who's this handsome fellow? This is Shadow, my service dog. I remember, from the pictures. She crouched down and held out her hand for Shadow to sniff. Hello, Shadow. Thank you for taking care of my boy. Shadow's tail wagged enthusiastically. Ryan felt a lump forming in his throat. Mom. Don't. She stood up and brushed invisible lint off his shirt. Don't apologize. Don't explain. Just be here. That's all I ask. I'm here. Good. Now come inside. Your brother's been driving everyone crazy, asking when you'd arrive. The main building was chaos. Caterers were setting up. Florists were arguing about centerpieces. A woman with a clipboard was barking orders at everyone who crossed her path. In the middle of it all stood Jake Mitchell, 28 years old, dark hair like their father, Mom's blue eyes, the kind of easy smile that made everyone around him feel comfortable. He looked up and saw Ryan. Hey, you made it! Jake crossed the room in 5 long strides and wrapped Ryan in a bear hug. Of course I made it. Of course I made. Wouldn't miss it. I was starting to worry. You didn't answer your phone last night. Long drive, got in late. Everything okay? Ryan thought about the confrontation at the hotel, the panic attack, the corporate intervention, the sleepless night. Everything's fine. I'm here. Jake pulled back and looked at him with an expression that was too knowing for Ryan's comfort. His little brother had grown up while he was away, learned to read people, learned to see through the masks that Ryan wore so carefully. We'll talk later, Jake said quietly. There's nothing to talk about. There's always something to talk about with you, but not now. Jake's smile returned. Now you need to meet Sarah. She's been dying to finally meet the famous brother I never shut up about. Sarah Chen was not what Ryan expected. He'd seen pictures, of course, pretty dark-haired with a warm smile. But pictures didn't capture the energy that radiated from her, the way she seemed to light up whatever space she occupied. She approached Ryan with her hand extended. Ryan. Finally. Jake talks about you constantly. All lies, I'm sure. Mostly good things. Her eyes sparkled with humor. He says you're the reason he learned to fight. Something about defending him from bullies in middle school. Ryan glanced at Jake. You told her about that. I told her everything. No secrets between us. Sarah looked down at Shadow. And this must be Shadow. Jake told me about him too. He's beautiful. Thanks. He's been a good partner. I bet. Sarah's expression shifted to something more serious. Jake told me what he does for you. I think it's wonderful that you have that support. Ryan didn't know what to say. People usually didn't acknowledge Shadow's role so directly. They danced around it, pretended not to notice, changed the subject. Thank you, he managed. No need to thank me. I'm just glad you're here. It means everything to Jake. She squeezed his arm and moved away to deal with some crisis involving table linens. Jake was watching him. What? Ryan asked. Nothing. Just glad you're here. You keep saying that. Because I keep meaning it. The morning passed in a blur of introductions, preparations, and family chaos. Ryan met Sarah's parents, her sister, her grandmother, who insisted on pinching his cheeks and telling him he was too skinny. He met Jake's groomsmen, 3 guys from college who seemed intimidated by Ryan's military background and overcompensated by being aggressively friendly. Shadow stayed close throughout, a steady presence at Ryan's side. The dog was working hard, Ryan could tell. Reading the room, monitoring stress levels, positioning himself to provide maximum support. By noon, Ryan was exhausted. He found a quiet corner and sat down, Shadow immediately settling at his feet. His mother found him there. Hiding. Resting. Same thing with you. She sat down beside him. You're doing good, Ryan. I know this is hard. It's fine. It's not fine. It's never fine. But you're doing it anyway, and that's what matters. Ryan looked at his mother, at the worry lines around her eyes, at the gray in her hair that hadn't been there before he deployed. I'm sorry, he said. For what? For Christmas, for leaving early, for not being there. Ryan, I know you said don't apologize, but I need to. I've been so wrapped up in my own stuff that I forgot other people have stuff too. Jake's getting married. You're watching your baby grow up. I should be here for that. I should be better. His mother was quiet for a long moment. Do you know what I remember most about the day you left for basic training? Ryan shook his head. You were 18 years old, barely. You'd just graduated high school 2 months earlier. Your father had died the year before, and we were still trying to figure out how to pay the bills. And there you were, heading off to become a soldier so you could send money home to help. Someone had to. No, someone didn't have to. You chose to. You chose to carry a burden that wasn't yours to carry. You've been doing it ever since. That's my job. No, baby. That's your trauma. She took his hand. You think you have to save everyone, protect everyone, be strong for everyone, but you don't. You're allowed to need help too. Ryan felt his eyes burning. I don't know how to do that. I know. That's why you have Shadow. That's why you have us. You don't have to figure it out alone. Shadow lifted his head and looked at Ryan with those calm, knowing eyes. His mother squeezed his hand. Now come on. Your brother wants to do a toast at lunch, and he specifically asked for you to be there. The lunch toast was simple. Jake stood up, raised his glass, and looked around the table at his family, his friends, his fiancée. I want to thank everyone for being here. This weekend means everything to Sarah and me, but I especially want to thank my brother Ryan. Ryan felt every eye in the room turn toward him. Ryan couldn't make it to a lot of family events over the years. He was busy keeping our country safe, missing birthdays, holidays, all the stuff most people take for granted. He sacrificed more than any of us will ever know. Jake's voice wavered slightly. But he's here now. He drove 14 hours to be here, and that means more to me than I can ever say. Ryan stared at his plate. So this toast is for Ryan, for showing up, for always showing up even when it's hard. I love you, brother. Everyone raised their glasses. Ryan raised his too, though his hand was shaking. To Ryan, Jake said. To Ryan. The room echoed. Under the table, Shadow pressed against Ryan's leg. The afternoon brought more chaos, more preparations, more moments that tested Ryan's limits. By 6 p.m., he was done. I need to head back to the hotel, he told Jake. Get some rest before tomorrow. You sure we were going to do dinner? I'm sure. Save my spot at the rehearsal dinner. Ryan? I'm fine, just tired. Jake looked at him for a long moment, then nodded. Okay, get some rest. Big day tomorrow. Yeah, big day. The drive back to the hotel was quiet. Shadow sat in the passenger seat watching the desert scenery pass by. Ryan's mind was racing. The toast, his mother's words, the weight of expectations, the fear of letting everyone down. He pulled into the hotel parking lot and sat there for a moment. His phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Mr. Mitchell, this is Brittany from the Grandview front desk. I know I don't have the right to contact you, but I wanted to apologize properly. What I did last night was wrong. I'm so sorry. Ryan stared at the message. He thought about deleting it, about ignoring it, about letting the whole incident fade into memory. Instead, he typed back. Apology accepted. Learn from it. 3 dots appeared. Then a response. I will. I promise. Thank you for your service. Ryan put the phone away. Shadow whined softly. Yeah, buddy. I know. Time for dinner. They walked into the hotel lobby together. David Chen was there talking to a staff member. He looked up and smiled when he saw Ryan. "Mr. Mitchell, how was your day?" "It was good, thank you." "Excellent. I wanted to let you know that I've already begun implementing new training protocols for our staff. What happened to you will never happen again at this hotel." "I appreciate that. It's the least we can do." David paused. "I also wanted to tell you something. After you left last night, Brittany broke down crying. She said she'd never felt so ashamed in her life. She asked if she could write you a letter of apology." "She already texted me." "She did?" "Yeah. I told her apology accepted." David looked surprised. "That's very generous of you." "Everyone makes mistakes. What matters is what you do after." David nodded slowly. "You're a good man, Mr. Mitchell." "Just trying to be better." Ryan headed for the elevator. Behind him, Shadow walked steadily at his side. Tomorrow would bring more challenges. The wedding, the crowds, the emotions. But tonight, Ryan had something he hadn't had in a long time. Hope. Hope that maybe, just maybe, things were starting to change. The elevator doors opened. Ryan stepped inside. Shadow followed. And somewhere in the lobby, David Chen picked up the phone to begin the process that would eventually transform how the entire Grandview hotel chain treated veterans and their service animals. But Ryan didn't know that yet. All he knew was that he was tired, his dog was hungry, and tomorrow his little brother was getting married. One step at a time. That was all anyone could do. Ryan woke at 5 a.m. to the sound of Shadow whimpering. The dog was pressed against his chest, nose buried in Ryan's neck, body trembling. It took Ryan a moment to realize he was the one who had been screaming. His throat was raw. His pillow was soaked with sweat. His heart pounded so hard he could hear it in his ears. The nightmare had been different this time. Not Fallujah. Not the IED. This time he'd been at Jake's wedding. Standing at the altar, watching his brother say his vows. And then the ceiling had collapsed. The walls had exploded. Everyone he loved was screaming, dying, burning, and Ryan couldn't save any of them. He couldn't save anyone. Shadow licked his face, desperate and insistent. "I'm okay," Ryan whispered. "I'm okay, buddy. I'm here." But his hands were shaking so badly he could barely grip the sheets. He looked at the clock. 5:07 a.m. The wedding was at 2 p.m., 9 hours away. 9 hours felt like a lifetime. Ryan forced himself out of bed, forced himself into the bathroom, forced himself to turn on the shower and stand under the hot water until his muscles stopped trembling. Shadow sat outside the shower door watching, waiting, ready. By 6 a.m., Ryan was dressed in his civilian clothes and sitting on the edge of the bed staring at the suit hanging in the closet. His brother had asked him to be best man. Ryan had said no. "I can't do speeches," he'd explained over the phone 3 months ago. "I can't stand up in front of all those people." Jake had been disappointed but understanding. "Okay, will you at least be a groomsman?" "I'll try. That's all I ask." Now looking at that suit, Ryan wondered if even that was too much. His phone buzzed. A text from his mother. "Breakfast at the venue at 8. The photographer wants family photos before the ceremony. Please don't be late." Ryan typed back a thumbs up and set the phone aside. Shadow jumped onto the bed and lay down beside him, head resting on Ryan's thigh. "Big day, buddy. Think we can handle it?" The dog's tail wagged once. "Yeah, me neither." The venue was already buzzing when Ryan arrived at 7:45. Caterers were rushing around with trays. Florists were making last-minute adjustments. A string quartet was setting up in the corner. Ryan found his mother near the entrance directing traffic like a general commanding troops. "Ryan, good, you're early. The photographer wants to start in 15 minutes. Go find your brother. He's in the groom's suite having some kind of crisis." Crisis. Nothing serious, pre-wedding jitters, but he asked for you specifically. Ryan's stomach tightened. Why me? Because you're his brother. Because he trusts you. Because even though you don't believe it, you're the strongest person he knows. Mom. Go. He needs you. Ryan found Jake in a small room at the back of the venue, sitting on a couch with his head in his hands. Hey. Jake looked up. His eyes were red, his tie was crooked, his hair was a mess. Ryan, thank God. Mom said you were having a crisis. That's one word for it. Jake laughed, but there was no humor in it. I'm freaking out. About what? Everything. Nothing. I don't know. Jake stood up and started pacing. What if I screw this up? What if I'm not good enough for her? What if I say the wrong thing or do the wrong thing or... Jake, stop. I can't stop. My brain won't stop. It just keeps spinning and spinning and... Jake! Ryan stepped forward and grabbed his brother by the shoulders. Look at me. Jake looked. You're not going to screw this up. You're not going to say the wrong thing. You love Sarah. She loves you. That's all that matters. But what if... There's no what if. There's only right now. This moment. This day. You and her. Jake's breathing was still rapid, but some of the panic had left his eyes. How do you do it? He asked. Do what? Stay calm. When everything feels like it's falling apart. Ryan almost laughed. Him calm. The man who woke up screaming from nightmares, who couldn't walk into a crowded room without his service dog, who had nearly had a panic attack over a hotel fee 2 nights ago, but Jake didn't need to know any of that. Not today. Practice, Ryan said. Lots of practice. I don't feel practiced. I feel like I'm going to throw up. That's normal. Everyone feels like that before big moments. Did you? Before your first deployment? Ryan thought back. 18 years old. Shipping out to Afghanistan. Terrified but trying not to show it. Yeah, I did. What did you do? I focused on the mission, on the people counting on me, on the reason I was there in the first place. Jake nodded slowly. The mission. Sarah. Exactly. She's your mission. Everything else is just noise. Jake took a deep breath, then another. His shoulders dropped, his jaw unclenched. Okay. Okay, I can do this. You can do this. Thanks, Ryan. That's what big brothers are for. Jake pulled him into a hug. A real hug, the kind they used to share before Ryan went away and came back different. I love you, man. Love you too, kid. Shadow's tail wagged from his spot by the door. The family photos were chaos. Ryan stood where the photographer told him to stand, smiled when she told him to smile, moved when she told him to move. Inside, he was fighting to stay present. The flash of the camera kept triggering something in his brain. Each burst of light felt like muzzle fire, like explosions, like the flash of an IED detonating. Shadow stayed pressed against his leg the entire time, a constant reminder that he was here in Arizona at a wedding. Not there, not in the desert, not watching his friends die. Ryan, can you move a little to the left? He moved. Perfect. Now everyone smile big. He smiled. Flash, flash, flash. His hands were trembling. His heart was racing. The edges of his vision were starting to blur. Shadow whined softly and pressed harder against his leg. Not now, Ryan told himself. Not here, not today. Okay, that's a wrap on family photos. Groom's party, you're up next. Ryan stepped out of frame and bent down to Shadow, pretending to adjust the dog's vest. Good boy, he whispered. Good boy. Keep me grounded. Shadow licked his hand. By the time the groom's party photos were done, Ryan was running on empty. He found a quiet corner behind the venue and leaned against the wall, trying to catch his breath. Shadow sat beside him, watching. I don't know if I can do this, buddy. The dog tilted his head. All those people, all that attention, the ceremony, the reception, the dancing, the toasts. Ryan closed his eyes. It's too much. Shadow stood up and pressed his nose against Ryan's hand. I'm here. You're not alone. Ryan took a deep breath, held it, released it slowly. One step at a time, right? That's what the therapist always says. Shadow's tail wagged. Okay, one step at a time. Ryan. He turned to find Sarah standing a few feet away. She was wearing a simple white dress, her hair pulled back, her makeup perfect. She looked beautiful and worried. Are you okay? Fine. Just needed some air. Jake told me about the panic attacks. I hope that's okay. Ryan tensed. He told you. He tells me everything. I hope that doesn't make you uncomfortable. It's fine. Sarah moved closer. I just wanted you to know that I understand. My father had PTSD. He served in Vietnam. I grew up watching him fight the same battles you're fighting. Ryan didn't know what to say. He passed away 5 years ago. Sarah continued. Heart attack. But I think the real damage was done decades before that. The war never really let him go. I'm sorry. Don't be. Just know that I see you. I see what you're going through. And I'm grateful you're here, even though I know how hard it must be. Ryan felt something crack inside his chest. Not a bad crack, the kind that lets light in. Thank you, he managed. Sarah smiled. Thank you, for being Jake's brother, for being there for him, for showing up today. She touched his arm briefly, then walked away to continue her pre-wedding preparations. Shadow looked up at Ryan with those knowing eyes. Yeah, Ryan said. She's good for him. The ceremony started at 2 p.m. exactly. Ryan stood in his designated spot with the other groomsmen, Shadow lying quietly at his feet. The venue was packed. 200 guests, maybe more. He could feel all those eyes on him, all that attention, all that potential judgment. But then the music started, and everyone turned to watch Sarah walk down the aisle. And suddenly, it wasn't about Ryan anymore. It was about Jake standing at the altar with tears streaming down his face. It was about Sarah, radiant and glowing, walking toward the man she loved. It was about two people choosing each other, promising forever, building a life together. Ryan watched his brother's face as Sarah reached the altar. The love there was so pure, so absolute, that it made his chest ache. He had loved like that once, before the war, before everything got complicated. He wondered if he ever would again. The officiant began speaking, but Ryan barely heard the words. He was too busy watching Jake, watching the way his brother looked at Sarah like she was the only person in the world. That was what love was supposed to look like. The rings, please. Ryan snapped back to attention. That was his cue. He reached into his pocket and pulled out the ring box, handed it to Jake. Their eyes met. Thanks, brother, Jake whispered. Always. Jake slid the ring onto Sarah's finger with hands that barely trembled. Sarah did the same. By the power vested in me, I now pronounce you husband and wife. You may kiss the bride. Jake kissed Sarah, and the crowd erupted in cheers. Ryan found himself smiling. A real smile. The kind he hadn't felt in years. Shadow's tail wagged against his leg. The reception was louder, brighter, more chaotic than the ceremony. Ryan stuck to the edges, nursing a glass of water while everyone else drank champagne. Shadow stayed close, eyes constantly scanning the crowd. His mother found him near the dessert table. You're doing great, sweetheart. I'm surviving. Same thing with you. She squeezed his arm. The toasts are coming up soon. Are you sure you don't want to say something? I'm sure. Jake would love it if you did. I know, but I can't. I'm sorry. Margaret nodded, disappointment flickering across her face before she hit it. It's okay. I understand. But she didn't understand. How could she? How could anyone who hadn't been there understand what it felt like to stand in front of a crowd and feel like every eye was a rifle scope, every silence a prelude to an ambush? The toasts began. Sarah's maid of honor went first. A funny, touching speech about college roommates and late-night conversations, and knowing Jake was the one the moment Sarah started talking about him. Everyone laughed. Everyone cried. Everyone raised their glasses. Then it was the best man's turn, except Jake hadn't chosen a best man, because Ryan had said no. So Jake's college roommate Mike stood up instead. His speech was fine. Funny stories about fraternity days and road trips and Jake's terrible cooking. But Ryan could see the gap, the missing piece, the speech that should have come from a brother. Jake's eyes found Ryan across the room. There was no accusation there, no disappointment, just understanding. And somehow that was worse. Ryan excused himself and headed for the bathroom. Shadow followed. He locked himself in a stall and pressed his back against the door, breathing hard. You should have said something. You should have stood up for him. He's your brother, and you couldn't even give a toast. The guilt was crushing. The kind that squeezed your chest and made it hard to breathe. Shadow whined and pressed against his legs. Someone knocked on the bathroom door. Ryan, you in there? Jake's voice. Yeah, just a minute. Can I come in? Ryan hesitated, then unlocked the stall door. Jake slipped inside the bathroom and closed the main door behind him. You okay? Fine. Liar. Ryan almost smiled. Okay, not fine, but I'll live. Jake leaned against the sink. You know I don't blame you for not giving a toast, right? You should. Why? Because some stupid tradition says the brother has to stand up and embarrass the groom. That's not what matters. What matters is, I wasn't there for you. Ryan, Jake's voice was firm. You drove 14 hours to be here. You sat through photos and a ceremony and a reception, even though I know it's killing you inside. You showed up. That's all I ever wanted. It doesn't feel like enough. It's everything. Jake moved closer. You want to know what I remember most about growing up? It's not the baseball games or the birthday parties or any of that. It's you. Coming to my room after Dad died. Telling me everything was going to be okay. Promising you'd always be there. Ryan's eyes burned. You kept that promise. Jake continued. Every single day. Even when you were deployed. Even when you came back different. Even when everything fell apart. You kept showing up. Jake? I'm not done. Jake's eyes were glistening. You think you let me down? You've never let me down. Not once. You're the strongest person I know. And I don't mean the military stuff. I mean the getting up every day when everything hurts stuff. The fighting your own brain stuff. The showing up even when it's hard stuff. Ryan couldn't speak. The lump in his throat was too big. So, no more guilt, okay? No more thinking you're not enough. Because you are. You always have been. Jake pulled him into a hug. Ryan hugged back. Shadow squeezed between them, tail wagging. They stayed like that for a long moment. Your wife is probably wondering where you are, Ryan finally said. She knows where I am. She told me to come find you. She's good. The best. They pulled apart. Jake straightened Ryan's jacket. Now come on. The cake cutting's in 10 minutes and Mom will kill us both if we miss it. Can't have that. No, we cannot. They walked back into the reception together. Sarah spotted them immediately and smiled. His mother looked relieved. And for the first time all day, Ryan felt like maybe, just maybe, he was exactly where he was supposed to be. The cake cutting happened without incident. So did the first dance, and the father-daughter dance, and the mother-son dance. Ryan watched it all from his spot near the edge of the room, Shadow at his feet. When the DJ opened the floor for general dancing, his mother appeared at his side. Dance with me. Mom, I don't... It wasn't a question. She grabbed his hand and pulled him onto the dance floor. The song was something slow, something he didn't recognize. His mother put his hand on her waist and her hand on his shoulder, just like she'd taught him when he was 12 and terrified of the school dance. You're doing good, she said. You keep saying that. Because it keeps being true. They swayed together, not really dancing, just moving. I'm proud of you, Ryan. For what? For being here. For trying. For not giving up. Mom. I know you think you're broken. I know you think the war took something from you that can't be given back. But you're wrong. You're still in there. The boy who used to catch fireflies in the backyard. The teenager who worked 2 jobs to help pay the bills. The man who sacrificed everything for his country and got nothing but nightmares in return. Ryan's vision blurred. You're still in there, his mother repeated. And one day you're going to find your way back to yourself. I believe that. I have to believe that. The song ended. Margaret squeezed his hand. Now go get some cake before your brother eats it all. Ryan laughed. A real laugh. Yes, ma'am. The reception wound down around 10 p.m. Ryan helped carry gifts to Jake's car, hugged his mother goodbye, shook hands with relatives he barely remembered. Jake found him in the parking lot as the last guests were leaving. Hey, heading out. Yeah, long drive back tomorrow. You could stay longer. Take some time off. I wish I could, but I've got work Monday. Jake nodded. I get it. Just don't be a stranger. Okay, call more, visit more, let us be there for you. I'll try. That's all I ask. They hugged one more time. Congratulations, little brother. Thanks for coming, big brother. Ryan got in his truck. Shadow jumped into the passenger seat. He started the engine and pulled out of the parking lot. In his rearview mirror, he could see Jake standing there, arm around Sarah, watching him go. Ryan drove back to the hotel in silence. His mind was quiet for once. No racing thoughts, no flashbacks, no panic, just peace. Temporary maybe, but real. He pulled into the hotel parking lot and sat there for a moment. Shadow whined softly. I know, buddy. Time for bed. They walked into the lobby together. The night clerk looked up. A young man this time, not Brittany. Mr. Mitchell. How was the wedding? It was good. Really good. Glad to hear it. Mr. Chen left something for you at the desk. Hold on. The clerk disappeared into the back office and returned with an envelope. Ryan opened it. Inside was a handwritten note. Mr. Mitchell, I wanted to thank you again for your patience during your first night here. Because of your willingness to speak up, we've begun implementing changes that will benefit veterans across our entire hotel chain. You didn't just stand up for yourself. You stood up for everyone who comes after you. With gratitude, David Chen. Ryan stared at the note. Shadow pressed against his leg. You hear that, buddy? We made a difference. The dog's tail wagged. Ryan tucked the note into his pocket and headed for the elevator. Tomorrow, he would drive back to Virginia, back to his apartment, back to his routine. But tonight, for the first time in a long time, he felt something other than dread. He felt hope. The elevator doors opened. Ryan stepped inside. And somewhere in the hotel, a training program was being designed that would teach every employee how to recognize and respect service animals. Because one veteran refused to accept discrimination. Because one dog never stopped doing his job. Because sometimes standing up for yourself was the same as standing up for everyone. 6 months later, Ryan was sitting in his VA therapist's office when his phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen. A text from an unknown number. Ignore it, Dr. Patterson said. We're in the middle of something. Sorry. Ryan silenced the phone and set it face down on his knee. Shadow shifted at his feet, adjusting position, so his head rested on Ryan's boot. You were telling me about the nightmares, Dr. Patterson continued. You said they've been different lately. Yeah, less frequent, less intense. What do you think changed? Ryan considered the question. He'd been asking himself the same thing for weeks. I don't know. Maybe the wedding. Maybe seeing Jake happy. Maybe just time. Or maybe you're finally starting to believe you deserve to heal. Ryan didn't respond. That was still a hard concept to accept. His phone buzzed again, then again, then again. Dr. Patterson raised an eyebrow. Someone really wants to reach you. Sorry, let me just check. Ryan picked up the phone. 4 texts from the same unknown number. Mr. Mitchell, this is David Chen from the Grandview Resort. I apologize for contacting you out of the blue. Something has happened that I think you'd want to know about. Please call me when you have a chance. It's important. Ryan stared at the messages. Everything okay? Dr. Patterson asked. I'm not sure. Can we cut today's session short? I need to make a call. Of course. We can reschedule for later this week. Ryan thanked her and headed for the parking lot, Shadow trotting beside him. He sat in his truck and dialed the number. David Chen answered on the first ring. Mr. Mitchell, thank you for calling back so quickly. Your message said something happened. Yes, I'm not sure where to begin. David's voice sounded different, emotional. Do you remember Brittany, the clerk from your first night here? Ryan's jaw tightened. I remember. She asked me to contact you. She has something she wants to tell you. But first, I need to explain what's been happening at our company since your visit. Ryan listened as David laid out the changes. After the incident, Grandview Corporate had launched a comprehensive review of their service animal policies. They discovered that what happened to Ryan wasn't an isolated incident. Complaints had been filed at dozens of their properties. Veterans, disabled guests, people with invisible conditions. All of them treated with the same skepticism and hostility Ryan had experienced. The company brought in consultants, rewrote their training programs, implemented new procedures for handling service animal documentation. Every employee across all 340 hotels received mandatory education on the Americans with Disabilities Act. We tracked the results, David said. Complaints related to service animals dropped by 92% in the first quarter alone. Guest satisfaction among disabled travelers increased by 40%. That's great. It is, but that's not why I called. David paused. Brittany has been one of our most vocal advocates for these changes. She's traveled to 12 different properties to help train staff. She's become something of an expert on service animal accommodations. Ryan wasn't sure what to say. The woman who had humiliated him was now teaching others not to do the same. She wants to talk to you, David continued. She's written you a letter, but she asked if she could deliver it in person. She's in Virginia this week for a training session. Would you be willing to meet with her? Ryan's first instinct was to say no. Why should he give her anything? She'd accused him of fraud, called his service dog fake, made him feel like his invisible wounds didn't matter. But then he thought about what his mother had said at the wedding. What matters is what you do after. When? Ryan asked. Tomorrow if you're available. She's staying at our Richmond property. Fine, I'll be there. Thank you, Mr. Mitchell. This will mean more to her than you know. Ryan hung up and sat in silence for a long moment. Shadow whined and rested his chin on Ryan's arm. I know, buddy. I don't know what to think either. The drive to Richmond took 2 hours. Ryan spent most of it wrestling with conflicting emotions: anger, curiosity, resentment, and underneath it all, something that might have been hope. People could change. He'd seen it happen. He'd experienced it himself in the slow, painful process of learning to live with PTSD instead of being controlled by it. But could someone change that much in 6 months? He pulled into the hotel parking lot at 2 p.m. Shadow hopped out and immediately moved to his left side, alert and ready. The lobby was empty, except for a young woman sitting in one of the armchairs near the window. Brittany. She looked different. Older somehow, though it had only been 6 months. Her hair was shorter. Her expression was softer. The defensive arrogance Ryan remembered was gone, replaced by something that looked like genuine nervousness. She stood up when she saw him. Mr. Mitchell? Brittany. They stood there for an awkward moment, neither sure what to say. Shadow watched with calm interest. "Thank you for coming," Brittany finally said. "I wasn't sure you would. I almost didn't." "I wouldn't have blamed you." She gestured toward a quiet corner with 2 chairs. "Can we sit? I have a lot to tell you." They sat. Shadow settled at Ryan's feet. Brittany pulled an envelope from her purse but didn't open it. "I've been trying to figure out what to say to you for 6 months," she began. "I've written this letter probably 20 times, but nothing ever felt like enough. Why did you ask to meet in person?" "Because I owed you that. A letter felt too easy, too safe. I needed to look you in the eye and tell you how sorry I am." Ryan said nothing. He'd heard her apologies before. That night at the hotel. In the text message afterward. Words were easy. Brittany seemed to sense his skepticism. "I know you don't have any reason to believe me. After what I did, after how I treated you, why would you? But I need you to understand something." She took a deep breath. "That night changed my life." "How?" "When corporate called, when I realized what I'd done, I felt like the worst person in the world. I went home and cried for 3 hours. I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep, kept replaying the conversation over and over, hearing myself say those horrible things to you." Her voice cracked. "I almost quit. I thought if I'm capable of treating someone like that, I don't deserve to work with people. But Mr. Chen convinced me to stay. He said I had a choice. I could run from what I did, or I could learn from it." "So you chose to learn." "I chose to try." Brittany wiped her eyes. "I started reading about PTSD, about invisible disabilities, about what veterans go through when they come home. And the more I read, the more ashamed I felt." She opened the envelope and pulled out a photograph. "This is my grandfather, Staff Sergeant William Cooper. He served in Vietnam." Ryan looked at the photo. An older man in military dress medals on his chest, eyes that had seen too much. "He died when I was 12, Brittany continued. "I barely knew him. He was always distant, always angry. My mom said he was never the same after the war. I'm sorry. I didn't understand back then. I thought he was just mean, cold. But now I know. He was struggling with the same things you struggle with, and no one helped him. No one even tried." She set the photo on the table between them. "When I accused you of faking your disability, I was doing to you what everyone did to my grandfather, dismissing his pain because I couldn't see it. I'm so sorry, Mr. Mitchell. Not just for what I said, but for what I represented. All the people who don't understand, who judge, who make things harder for veterans who've already sacrificed everything." Ryan stared at the photograph. At the face of a man who had probably felt exactly the way Ryan felt. Invisible, misunderstood, alone. "What happened to him?" Ryan asked. "Your grandfather." Brittany's face crumpled. "He shot himself. 2 days before Christmas 1998. I was 8. The words hit Ryan like a physical blow. He thought about his own dark moments. The times when the pain felt unbearable. The nights when he'd wondered if everyone would be better off without him. Shadow pressed against his leg, sensing the shift in his emotions. "I'm sorry," Ryan said. "I didn't know." "How could you? I never talk about it. My family never talked about it. It was this shameful secret we all pretended didn't exist." Brittany's voice hardened with determination. "But that's exactly the problem, isn't it? We don't talk about it. We don't acknowledge it. And then we're surprised when veterans slip through the cracks." She reached into the envelope again and pulled out a stack of papers. "This is what I've been doing for the last 6 months. Training materials I helped develop. Testimonials from veterans I've met during the sessions. Data on how our new policies are helping people." Ryan flipped through the pages. Statistics, quotes, success stories. "One of the veterans I met last month was a Marine named Torres," Brittany said. "He has a service dog for PTSD like you. He told me that before our policy changes, he'd been turned away from 3 different hotels in one night. 3. He ended up sleeping in his car because no one would accommodate his dog. That happens more than people think. I know that now. I didn't know it then. Brittany leaned forward. Mr. Mitchell, what I did to you that night was wrong. It was illegal, it was cruel, and it was based on complete ignorance. But something good came from it. Because you stood up for yourself, because you refused to just pay the fee and move on, hundreds of other veterans will never have to go through what you went through. Ryan didn't know what to say. He'd spent 6 months trying to put that night behind him. Trying not to think about Brittany, or the hotel, or any of it. He'd assumed his actions had been forgotten as quickly as they'd happened. He'd been wrong. There's something else, Brittany said. She pulled out one more piece of paper. This came in the mail last week. It was a letter from the Department of Veterans Affairs, a commendation recognizing Grandview Resort's new training program as a model for other hospitality companies to follow. They want to use our materials as a template for a nationwide initiative, Brittany explained. Hotels, restaurants, airports. Any business that interacts with the public. They're citing your case as the catalyst for all of it. Ryan read the letter twice. His name wasn't mentioned. His incident wasn't specifically referenced. But the timeline was clear. The changes all traced back to that night in October. To a clerk who didn't understand, and a veteran who refused to be silenced. I don't know what to say, Ryan admitted. You don't have to say anything. I just wanted you to know that what you did mattered. That your courage made a difference. Brittany stood up. I won't take any more of your time, but thank you for meeting with me, and thank you for not giving up that night. You could have walked away. You could have accepted the injustice. But you didn't. Ryan stood too. Shadow rose beside him. Brittany. She turned. What you're doing now, the training, the advocacy, it matters too. You made a mistake. But you're trying to fix it. That takes courage. Her eyes filled with tears. Thank you. That means more than you know. She extended her hand. Ryan shook it. Take care of yourself, he said, and keep fighting for veterans. They need people like you in their corner. I will. I promise. Brittany walked away. Ryan watched her go, then looked down at Shadow. Well, buddy, that was unexpected. The dog's tail wagged. They headed for the parking lot. Ryan was halfway to his truck when his phone rang. Jake's number. Hey, little brother. Ryan, perfect timing. Sarah and I have news. Ryan's heart skipped. What kind of news? The good kind, the best kind. Jake's voice was bursting with excitement. We're having a baby. Ryan stopped walking. A baby? A baby. Sarah's 3 months pregnant. We wanted to wait until we were sure everything was okay before telling anyone. You're the first person we called. Ryan felt something crack open inside his chest. Joy. Pure, unexpected joy. Jake, that's amazing. Congratulations. Thanks, man. We're over the moon. Jake paused. There's something else. We talked about it and we both agreed. We want you to be the godfather. Ryan couldn't speak. Ryan? You there? Yeah, I'm here. I'm just... He wiped his eyes. I'd be honored. Really? You're not going to argue or say you're not qualified or any of that stuff? No, I mean, I'll probably screw it up somehow. But yeah, I want to be there for your kid, for both of you. That means everything to us. Sarah's crying right now. She says thank you. Tell her thank you. For trusting me. We've always trusted you, Ryan. You just needed to start trusting yourself. They talked for a few more minutes. Due date in October. They didn't know the gender yet. Sarah was already shopping for baby clothes. By the time Ryan hung up, he was sitting in his truck with tears streaming down his face. Shadow whined and licked his cheek. I'm okay, buddy. These are good tears. The dog tilted his head. My brother's having a baby. I'm going to be a godfather. Shadow's tail wagged enthusiastically. Ryan started the truck and pulled out of the parking lot. The drive home felt different, lighter, like some weight he'd been carrying for years had finally started to lift. He thought about Brittany and her grandfather, about the ripple effects of one night at a hotel, about the veterans who would never know his name but would benefit from his refusal to stay silent. He thought about Jake and Sarah and the baby that was coming, about the future he'd never really let himself imagine. And he thought about Shadow, the dog who had saved his life more times than he could count, who was sitting in the passenger seat right now, watching him with those calm, knowing eyes. "We're going to be okay," Ryan said. "Aren't we, buddy?" Shadow's tail thumped against the seat. "Yeah, I think so too." Ryan's phone buzzed again. A text from Harold Okonkwo. "Hey, Ryan saw the news about the VA commendation. Told you that night meant something. Proud of you, brother." Ryan smiled and texted back a thumbs up. Another buzz. His mother. "Jake told me the news. You're going to be a godfather. Call me when you can. I love you." Another buzz. David Chen. "Brittany told me about your meeting. Thank you for giving her the chance to apologize. You're a good man, Mr. Mitchell." Ryan set the phone aside and focused on the road. The world felt different somehow. Not fixed, not perfect, but possible. Full of potential, instead of just pain. Shadow shifted in his seat and rested his head on Ryan's arm. They drove in comfortable silence. Somewhere behind them, a young woman was learning to make amends for her mistakes. Somewhere ahead, a baby was growing inside Sarah, a new life waiting to begin. And somewhere in the space between past and future, Ryan Mitchell was finally starting to believe that maybe, just maybe, his story wasn't over. It was just beginning. The highway stretched out before them. Ryan pressed the accelerator. Shadow's tail wagged, and the sun broke through the clouds for the first time all day. October arrived with a phone call that changed everything. Ryan was at work when his phone lit up with Jake's number. He almost ignored it. His brother usually texted during the day knowing Ryan's schedule. But something made him answer. "Jake." "Ryan." His brother's voice was shaking. "Sarah's in labor. The baby's coming early." Ryan's blood went cold. "How early?" 3 weeks. The doctors say it should be fine, but there were some complications, and they had to." Jake's voice broke. "I'm scared, Ryan. I'm really scared." Ryan was already grabbing his keys. "Which hospital?" "St. Mary's in Phoenix." "I'm on my way." "Ryan, you can't. It's a 20-hour drive." "Then I'll fly." The words came out before Ryan could stop them. Jake went silent. They both knew what flying meant for Ryan. The crowds, the confined spaces, the sounds and sensations that triggered every combat instinct he'd spent years trying to suppress. "You don't have to do that," Jake said quietly. "Yes, I do. My nephew is being born. I'm going to be there." Ryan hung up and looked at Shadow. "We're going to do something we haven't done in 5 years, buddy. Hope you're ready." The airport was worse than Ryan remembered. The noise hit him first, announcements blaring, people talking, children crying, phones ringing, a cacophony of sound that made his heart rate spike the moment he walked through the doors. Shadow pressed against his leg, already working. Ryan forced himself to keep moving. Security line, boarding pass, ID check. "Sir, I need to see documentation for your service animal." Ryan handed over the folder. The TSA agent examined it carefully, then nodded. "Thank you for your service. Have a safe flight." No argument. No accusation. No illegal fees. Progress. The gate was crowded. Every seat taken. People standing along the walls. Kids running around. Business travelers typing on laptops. Ryan found a corner and sat on the floor with his back against the wall. Shadow lay down beside him, body pressed close. "Just breathe," Ryan muttered to himself. "Just breathe." His phone buzzed, A text from Jake. Sarah's doing okay. Still in labor. How are you holding up? At the airport, about to board. Ryan. I don't know what to say. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. I still have to survive the flight. 3 dots appeared, then disappeared, then appeared again. You've got this, brother. You're the bravest person I know. Ryan stared at the message. Brave. He didn't feel brave. He felt terrified. His hands were sweating. His heart was pounding. Every loud noise made him flinch. But he was here. Despite everything, he was here. Shadow whined softly and licked his hand. I know, buddy. One step at a time. Boarding was chaos. People pushing, overhead bins slamming, flight attendants calling out instructions. Ryan found his seat an aisle near the back. He'd specifically requested it so he could see the entire cabin, know where all the exits were, have easy access to the bathroom if he needed to escape. Shadow squeezed into the space at his feet, barely fitting. The woman next to him glanced at the dog, then at Ryan. Service animal? Yes, ma'am. She nodded and went back to her book. No questions, no judgment. Progress. The plane started taxiing. Ryan gripped the armrests so hard his knuckles went white. Takeoff was the worst part. The acceleration. The pressure. The feeling of being trapped in a metal tube hurtling through the sky with no way out. Shadow stretched up and put his head on Ryan's lap. The dog's weight was grounding. Real. Present. Breathe. I'm here. You're safe. The wheels left the ground. Ryan closed his eyes and focused on Shadow's breathing. The slow, steady rhythm of a dog who trusted him completely. In, out. In, out. The plane climbed. Ryan's panic didn't disappear, but it didn't overwhelm him either. He was doing this. For Jake. For Sarah. For the nephew he hadn't met yet. For himself. The flight was 3 hours and 47 minutes of controlled terror. Every bit of turbulence felt like enemy fire. Every announcement from the cockpit sounded like a warning. Every time someone walked past his seat, Ryan's body tensed for a threat that wasn't there. But Shadow never left his side. Never stopped working. Never let Ryan fall into the spiral that had consumed him so many times before. By the time they landed, Ryan was exhausted. He grabbed his bag and walked off the plane on legs that felt like jelly. His phone buzzed immediately. Jake. Baby's here. It's a boy. Mother and child both healthy. Get here as fast as you can. Ryan's exhaustion vanished. He practically ran to the taxi stand. St. Mary's Hospital was a blur of hallways and elevators and nurses pointing him in the right direction. He found Jake standing outside a room on the maternity floor, looking more tired and happy than Ryan had ever seen him. Ryan! Jake pulled him into a crushing hug. You made it. You actually made it. Told you I would? Jake pulled back and looked at him with red-rimmed eyes. How was the flight? Terrible, but worth it. Jake laughed and it turned into something like a sob. Come on. Come meet your nephew. The room was quiet, except for the soft beeping of monitors. Sarah was lying in the hospital bed looking exhausted but radiant, and in her arms was a tiny bundle wrapped in a blue blanket. Ryan, she said softly. You came. Of course I came. Ryan approached the bed slowly. Shadow stayed near the door, giving the family their space. This is Marcus William Mitchell, Jake said. We named him after Dad. Ryan felt his throat tighten. Their father. William Mitchell. The man who had worked himself to death trying to provide for his family. The man whose death had set Ryan on the path that led to the Navy, to the SEALs, to everything that came after. Can I? Ryan gestured toward the baby. Of course. Sarah carefully transferred the bundle into his arms. Support his head. That's it. Ryan looked down at his nephew. Tiny fingers. Tiny toes. A face that was somehow already familiar. A perfect blend of Jake and Sarah, with hints of their father around the eyes. Hey, little guy, Ryan whispered. I'm your Uncle Ryan. Marcus opened his eyes. They were the deep, unfocused blue of all newborns, but they seemed to look right at Ryan. Something shifted inside Ryan's chest. Something that had been broken for a very long time. "I'm going to be honest with you," Ryan continued softly. "I'm kind of a mess. I have nightmares and panic attacks, and I'm not great at family stuff. But I'm going to try. For you. I'm going to try to be the kind of uncle you deserve." Marcus yawned. Jake laughed. "I think he's heard enough speeches for one day." Ryan smiled and handed the baby back to Sarah. "He's perfect," he said. "You guys did good. We had help." Jake put his arm around Ryan's shoulders. "From everyone who believed in us, including you. I didn't do anything. You showed up. That's everything." Shadow trotted over and sat beside Ryan, looking up at the baby with curious eyes. "Shadow, meet Marcus," Ryan said. "Marcus, this is Shadow. He's going to be your best friend's uncle, too." The dog's tail wagged. They stayed at the hospital until visiting hours ended. Ryan's mother arrived around 5 p.m., having driven through the night from her house in Texas. She burst into tears the moment she saw the baby. "My grandson," she kept saying. "My beautiful grandson." She hugged Ryan too, holding him tighter than usual. "You flew," she whispered. "Yeah. I'm so proud of you. It was just a flight." "No." She pulled back and looked at him with fierce eyes. "It was not just a flight. It was everything you've been fighting for. Don't diminish it." Ryan didn't know what to say. His mother kissed his cheek and went to take her turn holding Marcus. Jake found Ryan in the hallway a few minutes later. "Hey, you okay?" "Yeah, just processing." "I get it." Jake leaned against the wall beside him. "Listen, I need to ask you something, and I need you to actually think about it before you say no." "What?" "Sarah and I talked. We want you to move out here, to Arizona." Ryan blinked. "What?" "We want Marcus to know his uncle. Not through phone calls and occasional visits. We want him to know you, the real you, all the messy, complicated, beautiful parts." "Jake, I can't just—" "You can. You work remotely half the time anyway. And Dr. Patterson already gave you a referral to a therapist out here. I checked." "You checked?" "I've been planning this for months." Jake grinned. "Sarah found an apartment 3 blocks from our place, dog-friendly, month-to-month lease, so you don't have to commit right away." Ryan was speechless. "You don't have to decide now," Jake continued, "but promise me you'll think about it. Really think about it." Ryan looked through the window at his mother holding Marcus, at Sarah, watching with exhausted joy, at the family he'd spent so many years keeping at arm's length. "Okay," he said. "I'll think about it." The apartment was perfect. Ryan knew it the moment he walked through the door. 1-bedroom, small kitchen, a balcony overlooking a quiet courtyard. Close enough to Jake's place that he could walk there in 10 minutes. "What do you think?" the landlord asked. Ryan looked at Shadow. The dog was already exploring sniffing corners, checking exits. His tail was wagging. "I'll take it." The move happened 3 weeks later. Ryan packed up his life in Virginia, shipped what he couldn't fit in his truck, and drove cross-country with Shadow beside him. The same trip he'd made almost a year ago for Jake's wedding. But everything was different now. He wasn't running from something. He was running toward something. His first week in Arizona was a blur of unpacking paperwork and adjustment. His second week, he started seeing his new therapist. His third week, he got a call that stopped him in his tracks. "Mr. Mitchell, this is Congressman David Wheeler's office. The congressman would like to invite you to testify before the House Veterans Affairs Committee." Ryan almost dropped the phone. "I'm sorry, what?" "Your incident at the Grandview Resort has been cited in proposed legislation regarding service animal accommodations. Congressman Wheeler believes your testimony would be valuable in helping the committee understand the real-world impact of current gaps in the law." Ryan sat down heavily on his couch. I'm not a public speaker. I'm not qualified to." Sir, with respect, you're exactly qualified. You're a veteran who experienced discrimination firsthand and whose actions led to meaningful change. That's exactly what the committee needs to hear. Shadow jumped onto the couch and pressed against Ryan's side. Can I think about it? Of course. Take all the time you need. The hearing is in 6 weeks. Ryan hung up and stared at the wall. Congress. Testimony. Television cameras. Hundreds of people watching. Everything that terrified him. He called Jake. They want you to do what? Testify before Congress. Ryan, that's incredible. It's terrifying. Same thing with you. Jake laughed. Are you going to do it? I don't know. Yes, you do. You've known since the moment they asked. Ryan closed his eyes. He thought about Brittany standing in that hotel lobby, accusing him of fraud. He thought about Harold Okonkwo making a phone call that changed everything. He thought about all the veterans who faced similar discrimination and didn't have someone to intervene. He thought about Marcus growing up in a world that Ryan had a chance to make just a little bit better. Yeah, he said finally. I'm going to do it. That's my brother. The 6 weeks passed faster than Ryan expected. He worked with a speech coach, practiced his testimony, learned to manage his anxiety around public speaking. Shadow never left his side. The night before the hearing, Ryan couldn't sleep. He sat on his balcony watching the stars, his dog warm against his leg. His phone buzzed, a text from Brittany. I heard about the testimony. You're going to be amazing. Thank you for everything you've done. The veterans you're speaking for tomorrow, they're lucky to have you fighting for them. Ryan texted back. Thank you for everything you've done too. Another buzz. Harold Okonkwo. Saw you're testifying tomorrow. Watching from Chicago. Go get 'em, brother. Another. David Chen. The entire Grandview team will be watching. We're proud of you, Mr. Mitchell. Another. His mother. I'll be there in the gallery. Your father would be so proud. I love you. Another. Jake. Sarah and Marcus and I are watching from home. You've got this. Remember, you're not just speaking for yourself. You're speaking for everyone who can't. Ryan set the phone down and looked at Shadow. Big day tomorrow, buddy. The dog's tail wagged. Yeah, I know. One step at a time. The hearing room was everything Ryan feared. Television cameras, reporters, congressmen sitting behind a raised platform. A gallery packed with spectators. His mother was there front row. Jake was watching at home with Sarah and Marcus. The entire country, it felt like, was watching. Ryan walked to the witness table with Shadow beside him. The committee chairman called the hearing to order. Our first witness today is Lieutenant Commander Ryan Mitchell, United States Navy, retired. Commander Mitchell, thank you for being here. You may begin your testimony. Ryan looked at the microphone in front of him. His hands were shaking. Shadow pressed against his leg. Breathe. I'm here. You're safe. Ryan began to speak. Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, my name is Ryan Mitchell. I served 8 years in the United States Navy, including 5 deployments to combat zones in Afghanistan, Iraq, and Syria. I left the military with 3 combat decorations and severe post-traumatic stress disorder. His voice was steady, clearer than he expected. On October 14th of last year, I checked into a hotel in Phoenix, Arizona with my service dog Shadow. What happened over the next 7 minutes changed my life, and I hope will help change the lives of veterans across this country. He told the story, the discrimination, the accusations, the illegal fees, the corporate intervention. But he also told the after story, the policy changes, the training programs, the nationwide initiative, the ripple effects that spread far beyond one hotel lobby. I didn't stand up that night because I'm brave, Ryan said. I stood up because I was tired of apologizing for my invisible wounds, tired of proving my service dog was real, tired of watching other veterans face the same discrimination and give up. He looked at the committee members. The men and women who serve this country deserve better than what I experienced. They deserve to check into a hotel without being accused of fraud. They deserve to eat at a restaurant without being questioned about their disability. They deserve to exist in public spaces without having to justify their need for the support animals that keep them alive. Shadow shifted beside him. This dog has saved my life more times than I can count. He wakes me from nightmares. He senses panic attacks before I know they're coming. He gives me the courage to walk into rooms like this one, even when every instinct tells me to run. Ryan's voice cracked slightly. Service animals aren't pets with fake documentation. They're lifelines. They're the difference between a veteran who can function in society and one who can't leave their house. They're worth protecting, and so are the veterans who depend on them. He finished his testimony. The room was silent. Then the chairman spoke. Commander Mitchell, on behalf of this committee, thank you for your service and for your courage in sharing your story. We will take your testimony under serious consideration as we draft legislation to address these critical gaps in the law. Ryan nodded. He gathered his papers and walked out of the hearing room with Shadow beside him. His mother was waiting in the hallway. She didn't say anything, just pulled him into a hug and held on. I'm proud of you, she whispered. Your father is proud of you. Every veteran you just spoke for is proud of you. Ryan held her back. Thanks, Mom. Now come on. We've got a celebratory dinner to get to. Jake's already texting me every 30 seconds asking when we'll be there. The legislation passed 4 months later. The Ryan Mitchell Service Animal Protection Act made it a federal offense to discriminate against veterans with service animals. Hotels, restaurants, and public accommodations faced mandatory fines for violations. Training requirements became law. Ryan watched the signing ceremony on television from Jake's living room. Marcus was in his lap, 6 months old now, and fascinated by everything. Shadow lay at Ryan's feet exactly where he always was. Uncle Ryan's famous, Jake said with a grin. Uncle Ryan just wanted to check into a hotel. And instead you changed the law. Sarah shook her head in amazement. How does it feel? Ryan looked at his nephew, at his brother, at the family he'd almost lost 100 times over. It feels like the beginning, he said. That night, after everyone had gone to bed, Ryan sat on Jake's back porch with Shadow. The desert night was cool and quiet. Stars scattered across the sky like scattered memories. Ryan thought about Martinez, Peterson, Williams, the brothers he'd lost in Fallujah, the guilt he'd carried for so long. I couldn't save you, he whispered to the darkness. But maybe I can save someone else. Maybe that's enough. Maybe that's all any of us can do. Shadow lifted his head and looked at Ryan with those calm, knowing eyes. Ryan put his hand on the dog's head. We did good, buddy. We actually did good. The dog's tail wagged. Somewhere in the distance, a coyote howled. Ryan smiled. He wasn't fixed. He wasn't whole. He probably never would be. But he was here, present, alive, connected, and for the first time in longer than he could remember, that felt like enough. The back door opened, and Jake stepped out. Hey, couldn't sleep either. Just thinking. Jake sat down beside him. About what? Everything, nothing, the usual. They sat in comfortable silence for a while. You know, Jake said finally, when I was a kid, I used to think you were invincible. This superhero big brother who could do anything, handle anything, survive anything. And now I know you're just human, broken and scared and trying your best like the rest of us. Jake looked at him, and somehow that makes you even more of a hero. Ryan didn't know what to say. Thanks for coming to my wedding, Jake continued. Thanks for being Marcus's godfather. Thanks for moving out here. Thanks for testifying. Thanks for being my brother. Jake. I'm serious. You've spent so many years thinking you let people down. I need you to know you never did. Not once. Not ever. Ryan's eyes burned. I love you, little brother. Love you too, big brother. They sat together as the stars wheeled overhead. Shadow lay between them, keeping watch the way he always did. And somewhere in a hotel in Phoenix, a young clerk was training new employees on how to recognize and respect service animals. Somewhere in Washington, a law was protecting veterans who would never know Ryan's name. Somewhere in a military cemetery, 3 headstones stood in silent tribute to men who gave everything. And here, on a quiet back porch in Arizona, a broken warrior was finally learning to come home. Not to a place, to himself. The night grew deeper, the stars grew brighter, and Ryan Mitchell, for the first time in 13 years, felt something he thought he'd lost forever. Peace. Not the absence of pain, not the forgetting of loss, but the quiet acceptance that comes from knowing you've done what you could, loved who you could, fought for what mattered. Shadow's tail thumped against the ground. Ryan smiled. The war was over, the healing had begun, and the rest of his life was waiting.